660 AM The Answer, an iHeart radio station. 660AMTheAnswer.com. Now, the Who's Next Project, only on the Wells Report on 660 AM The Answer.
You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells, and what we're trying to do here on the Wells Report is do radio like Mama used to make. Back in the olden days, when radio actually operated in the public interest as a public trustee, many people who were seeking election to various offices around the area in which the radio stations operated were guests on the broadcasts. Now, we do that, and we continue to. We did that on all last year and year before, and in the run-up to the 2012 presidential election. And we do that because I believe that a lot of the information that you should have and what you should find on this show should also guide you in the ballot box. And that's what we try to get done here on the Wells Report on 660 AM The Answer. One of the great problems with a media that is clearly corrupt and in the bag for the other side, depending on, it doesn't really make any difference what side you're thinking about. You know, I mean, there are people on the liberal side of American politics that believe that the media is against them. Well, they're wrong, and we all know that. But that being said, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to make sure that you don't get propaganda in place of news. To that end, we bring you the Who's Next Project. Today's guest, John Gorena. He is running for Louisville City Council, Place 4. And John, welcome to the Wells Report. Good to have you here, my friend.
Thank you, JD. I'm glad to be here.
Talk to us a little bit about it. Now you won a special election for Louisville City Council in 2009. Then you were elected for a full 3-year term, and you have discovered the joys and love of working with the Louisville City Council, and now you'd like to do it for another 3 years.
I wouldn't have quite described it that way, JD. I ran because I didn't find anybody on council that represented me. There were issues that I didn't like that were going on, and so I ran. As a matter of fact, your show was one of the few shows I was listening to at the time that kind of inspired me. About 5 years ago, you were saying, you don't like what's going on, get up and do something about it. It was right after you came into the Metroplex area.
And you did it.
I did it. Well, you know, it was one of the things that got me going, and our city at the time, our city council had decided to build a day labor center with tax dollars to...
I remember that issue. And you said, you know what, that's enough.
Right. Well, you know, it was I know the day and time I woke up politically. It was May 1st, 2006, 5:30 p.m. on the CBS News. I was watching it, and 500,000 illegal people were in this town demanding rights and citizenship.
Yeah.
And then I found out our city was building a day labor center, and I led the effort to get that stopped. You know, Louisville's known where you can go hire people there locally. Well, this is America, and we need to be on the same playing field. Businesses need to pay their taxes. People need to hire legally, and that's what's going to make this country great. If we keep breaking the rules, then the people who are trying to follow the rules are not going to be able to succeed because people are cheating the system, and that's not what we should be allowing to happen. So I ran, trying to make a difference. I've got about 6 or 7, 8 issues that I want to get passed, and one of them is term limits.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. Well, how long do you think people ought to be able to serve any given particular political group, like, say, for example, the Louisville City Council?
I think it should be like, let's say you get on after a special election, but either way, after 2 consecutive full terms, 6 years, you run the first term. If the citizens want you again, you can run, you know, they'll elect you again. And then, you know, at the end of the second term, I believe that you should be gone off the city council, no boards, no commissions, no official capacity with the city for at least 1 year. Now, there are people who say forever, but I say come back and start over again if you like. Some cities have it where you can come back or, you know, do 8 years and then you're done. You don't get to come back. I'm just one of those people that I know that even Ted Kennedy was good in his first few terms, but over 40 years we all suspect the corruption and the long-term stuff. Well, yeah, I said it. It's how I feel about it. I'm sure a lot of Americans do too.
Well, absolute power corrupts, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you know, if you spend so much time in a particular political job, then somebody comes up and says, wait a minute, this is the Kennedy family seat. No, we don't do business that way. That's not the way we do things in America, and that certainly did happen. John Gorena is our guest. He's running for Louisville City Council, place number 4. Talk to us about the city debt in Louisville.
City debt? Well, every city, a lot of cities have different debt, and people think that cities have to be in debt. I say no, they don't. There are cities that don't have debt. In 2009, if you go to gorena.org, my website, and click the blog, you'll see Louisville debt. In there, you'll see where I've laid out where our liabilities for the next 22 years. Basically, they're payments. We're paying $19 million in 2009 to our debt. Basically, we have about $214 million from that time to pay off our debt. $159 million was principal, and roughly $54 million was interest. That's about 33% of the principal. What that means is to pay back $100 million is going to cost us $133 million. Any money that we don't need to spend somewhere else, if we don't pay off our debt, debt is debt, whether it's your household or city or company. If you don't pay off that debt with the money you can pay off, then everything you spend is going to be costing you at that rate. In other words, if we go spend $10,000 on a consultant, then that consultant basically costs us $13,000.
Sure, exactly right. So, in other words, when you grab credit, you're giving yourself the privilege of paying, I don't know, 1.5, 2 points, 3 points more than whatever it is that you were paying for was worth.
But think about it. If we paid $19 million in debt this year, or a few years ago, it keeps going down over the next 20 years. It's a schedule. You can look at it. But if we paid, let's say, $20 million, then we're $20 million below the zero mark. If we were out of debt, we'd be $20 million above the zero mark, which means $40 million from where we are and from where we could be. So if we're spending $20 million a year on debt payments and 33% is going to interest, think about us keeping that $20 million, putting $6 million in the general fund and continue with our projects. All I know is that our money will go 33% further. That's better for everybody. It's not like we're buying a house. And even if you buy a house, you should have a priority of paying that off than going to the bottom.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that Dave Ramsey said it best when he said that the new status symbol in life is a paid-off home mortgage.
And that's exactly right.
I'm working on it. I'd really love to get that done. Let's talk a little bit about problems caused by, say, transparency in government. You're talking about putting the entire city government on the web. Yes.
Right now, I had one of my first year, I tried to get cameras and everything into these workshops. Now, let me tell you how it works. We go into a workshop meeting before City Council, and it starts usually about 30 minutes before, but sometimes we have presentations. We might go an hour before. It's an open meeting. Anybody can go. We talk about and we discuss amongst ourselves, and everybody can listen what's going on. That is not put onto the web. When we go to the council meeting at 7, all we do is vote. So people see that online, and they go like, this is boring. I don't know what's going on.
Right.
I want it all on there because
you want the actual debate of any given issue.
I want all our discussions on the web because it should be our workshop meetings, it should be our retreats, it should be all those things. JD, if I may, can I go back to debt for just one quick second?
Sure.
Our city has a AAA rating, and it's like Dave Ramsey says, a credit score is an I love debt score.
Yeah.
Well, I want to give credit to our city manager and staff over there. They put a plan together. We have the funds coming in, and they've worked out a plan so that we can get a AAA rating. But again, that does not talk about how much debt we have and how much we're spending on interest. But it's not something that you should relish on. Like you said, a paid-off debt is...
Yeah, that's great. I mean, one of the harsh things. Susan had an accident, the other day. Actually, the accident had her. Somebody pulled in front of her, and she crashed our car.
She okay?
Oh yeah, she's fine. Colton was with her. I mean, and we had paid off the car. Yeah, he's fine. Everybody was fine.
Hey.
But what happened was that we should have known that it would happen. We bought new tires, put new brakes in the car, and paid it off. So obviously it's going to be crashed next. Is that right? I mean, that's the way it works. But that being said, we try really, really hard to not have any debt. And one of the problems is that we've got another car now that we have to spend a lot of time paying on. And by the way, when you get out of debt, it's amazing how much money you have. Let's talk about maintaining the property tax rate, reducing or maintaining. What's going on with that?
We want to have the best rate possible. If we get out of debt, 11% of our 11 cents of our property tax. When you pay property tax, like in Louisville, 70% goes to the school board, 10% goes to the county, and 20% goes to the city.
Right.
Out of our 44 cents that you pay out of that, about 11 cents is dedicated to debt. Okay, so if we could,
Wow.
yeah, I mean that happens.
That's
to a lot
of money.
Well, that happens in a lot of cities, but we can get around that. Just think about it. If we got out of debt, we can lower. I wouldn't say all 11% because we want to keep money coming in to go do our projects and stuff. But we can definitely be lower and be one of the lowest areas in town. But that's something I always strive to do. I don't want to raise taxes, but keep this in mind: if a council keeps spending money and they get in trouble because the economy goes bad, the current council will have no choice but to raise that to pay off the bills.
Right.
And that's what I would like to avoid.
Well, that's how cities across America are just getting buried in debt, and that somebody stands up and says, hey, we've got to stop this quickly before we end up going bankrupt. I mean, this is important stuff.
If you, one of the things that we can stop spending money on is we have these programs, and people think, they're good up on the surface, like the first-time home buyers. That's where we give your tax dollars, to help somebody with a down payment for a house.
Right.
Let me ask you a question, and I think most of your viewers,
No, we shouldn't be giving money to private citizens to buy a house.
Well, we have also another program called the Rehab of Homes, where we're giving up to $30,000 to fix up somebody's home because they can't afford to fix it up. Well, I'm called heartless because, I don't want to do that. And the reason is that taxpayers should not be subsidizing businesses or homeowners. What will happen with the house? If the house they can't keep up the house, they'll either sell it to someone who can, quote unquote, buy a fixer-upper,
right,
or it will be demolished, being substandard, and someone comes in and buys several lots, and that's how you make McMansions. Now, my opponents are saying that, we have to do that. We'll get the money back on the interest on the increased property value. Well, let's look about that. At our 20% of 44 cents, it'll take 227 years to break even.
Wow.
If we will start gaining property tax on that increased value. We give them $30,000. We already know that house isn't going to go up by $30,000, but if it did, it will take 227 years. So I'm told, it increases the value of the houses around. And I've said, okay, let's do this. Let's say that 9 other houses around also magically increase by 30,000, or the amount we give them, just for giving that one 30,000.
Sure, and this is for somebody to have to improve their house.
Right.
It's a home improvement loan.
And everybody's doing the math right now. Man, that'll still take 22.74 years to break even. And there's no need to do that.
Right.
And all we're doing is delaying the inevitable, because next year when the hailstorm comes and the tree falls in the yard, they're not going to fix up their house.
Exactly. And so there you go. John Gorena is our guest. He's running for Louisville City Council place number 4, talking about issues that are out of control in many of the cities around America. He's trying to work as hard as he can to not have to deal with any of that. Let me ask you this. From what I understand, there's been a little bit of grumbling going on about your idea to try to move forward with drilling for oil and gas in Louisville and surrounding areas.
Well,
how could that be? I mean, I paid $3.24 for each gallon of gas I bought today to be able to do all my running around, and that's just plain ridiculous. Well,
it's funny you bring that up, because my opponent in the Dallas Morning News questionnaire was making fun of my drilling stance. But let me just talk about where we're at on that. Louisville has a very strong drilling ordinance, and within a certain amount of feet, over minimum max feet, the city council has final approval on that. Well, at this last vote about 2 years ago, there was a small group of people that got up and complained. Let's talk about who wanted the drilling. In those drilling areas, the drilling companies came in, and in these areas that were dedicated to get the lease, 90% of the people in those pools signed for a lease and took the money. And that means the people spoke. I was one of those people. That's why I recused myself from the vote. And I guess we'll be back in a minute, Ed.
Well, actually, what we're going to do is we're going to thank you very much for being on the Wells Report and certainly on the Who's Next project. If people want to know more about you, where do they go and what do they do?
Gorena.org. That's GORENA.org.
Gorena.org. Good luck, my friend.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Can I say 660, Scott?
You can say 660. Say, we'll be back with more of the Wells Report next on 660 AM The Answer.
We'll be back with the Wells Report next on 660 AM The Answer.
See, he wants to be a talk show host like me.
Yeah, I do.
You're listening to the Wells Report. As the past few days have shown us, there is no